What's up? It's your man here, Afro Boricua. And I wanted to give a response to the video that I seen entitled A Girl Like Me, which displayed the test that the young lady did, which was a retest that was done some time ago by Dr. Kenneth Clark, which showed how the black children had an idea of obviously self-hatred, self-inferiority based on the test about choosing which doll they would like, whether a black doll or a white doll, which child was the good doll and which was the bad. And they said a lot of them, the majority of them said that the white baby doll was the good one because it was white, and the black one was was bad. And what really, I seen the original footage of the original test, and to see that this test was done again in recent in recent years, and to see that the results were still the same was mind-blowing. Not that I wasn't aware that obviously racism was there, but just to see it once again, that wow, the children are still infected with the idea of white supremacy is it just really put it in your face like bam, there it is. It's still right there. It's still strong, and it's still living. So what I wanted to do was just give my thoughts on it, and share some things with you about that. Of course, again, it just goes to show you that white supremacy works in so many ways. It doesn't have to be obvious. It doesn't have to be a person in your face calling you a nigger. It doesn't have to be institutionalized as far as you got to sit at the back of the bus, or you can only go here and there. Obviously, it is within our society so embedded that even at that young age, the kids realize that white is the way to go. So much so that the doll that looks like them, it's bad. So if they think that the black doll is ugly or bad or whatever, then obviously what are they saying about themselves? And which was really strong was when the one little girl, when the young lady was questioning her, and she said, which doll is good? The white one. Why? Because it's white. Which doll is bad? Why? Because it's black. And he said, which doll looks like you? And it seemed as if the little girl it clicked in her head that that she's saying that obviously if the black doll is bad, and then she asked, well, which one looks like you? And she said, well, it kind of like in her head, it's like she was saying that I feel that I'm bad because the way she, it was just, wow, it was just amazing, just to see that again in this day and time. Again, as I said, I am aware of the original footage, but it just goes to show you that white supremacy is real. It's there, it's alive, and it's in this country, it's in this society, it's in this world. But especially here in America, it's so embedded that even the children who don't have to face, the actual outright forms of it, that just from watching TV, looking at magazines, that's all you see, right? And obviously to the point where they actually believe that this is the case, that they'd rather have the white doll and all these things as such. In the book that I have here, it's entitled The Psychopathic Racial Personality by Dr. Bobby Wright. He talks about this issue. He calls it, what he calls it is menticide, and I'll read what he says. He says that he describes menticide, which is described as or defined as the deliberate and systematic destruction of a group's mind, with the ultimate objective being the extirpation of the group. For example, the acceptance by blacks of the concept of free will absolves whites of any responsibility for their victim's condition. In fact, whites have developed an effective defense mechanism, namely the guilt of the victim. And he also talks about a professor here, what's this professor's name, who actually also talked about this some 50 years ago, and this is 50 years ago from the time of the book, which is, I have this book for several years now, so 50 years from that, which talked about that. And let's see, this is what he said about that. He said that the analysis should not be surprising to anyone who has studied European history and is familiar with their objective of world domination. And due to the rising level of consciousness in black nationalism which threatened that process, menticide was developed approximately 50 years ago. A white professor of psychology at the University of Chicago proclaimed to the world this prophecy. He said, give me a dozen healthy infants, well informed, and my own specified world to bring them up in, and I'll guarantee to take any one of them at random and train him to become any type of specialist. He says he could train them to be a doctor, a lawyer, an artist, a merchant, a chief, and And contrary to that, he could train him to be a beggar man or a thief, regardless of his talents, penchants, tendencies, abilities, vocations, and the race of his. And this was by Dr. Watson back in 1924. Okay, he said the popularly called behavior modification is a highly complex science which is underrated and generally ignored by black behavioral scientists. Okay, so basically, the idea of the menticide is that it's this overall ideology of training people, putting in their heads that they are inferior, that you are worthless, and as we can see from the children, that obviously that is in play. Whether people want to acknowledge it or not, we see that that's in play. And I noticed on a lot of times you see people making comments to that video. They're in denial. Of course, a lot of them are white, and they're in denial because when you see the video, it's so clear. I don't care what race you are. I don't care what background you come from. When you see that video, it's troubling, man. It's sad to see that this is the idea that the kids have about themselves, about their race. And a lot of whites come on and make negative comments because they're in denial. They see that this is a result of what some from amongst their race has done to destroy the image of these kids. And then you wonder why in the African American community or in the urban cities where it's black and Hispanics that the crime is so high, that the schools are in poor condition, that the grades are not being done. Why? Well, how can you perform when this is what you think about yourself? You see? As the saying goes, as a person thinks, so shall they be. So if you think that you're bad, if you think that the black race is this and you're inferior, whatever, then how can you perform? How can you try to go out and perform and excel at life when you already have this, when it's already been instilled in you that you are inferior, that your color is terrible, that you as a people are bad? This is why Malcolm X was very profound about the idea of knowledge of self. You see, when you obtain knowledge of self, this is when you can break off the shackles of the mind infection of white supremacy and then move to excel, as you see Malcolm did. Right? As you know his story, how did he live? When he was coming up, he was actually told outright. He didn't have the experience of Nietzsche. He was told outright that, hey, niggers can't be lawyers, and he saw all the examples of the clear in-your-face forms of white supremacy. So for him, we could understand, but for these children, another case. But when Malcolm obtained knowledge of self, we see what happened to him. We see he became, and he didn't have any formal college, university education. Yet the man became very well informed, very knowledgeable about many issues. You see, and if you go back and look at the footage and read what people said about it, they said, man, even in debate, when he had debates with people who were doctors and whatever the case may be, doctors of different knowledges, whatever, that when he was on TV shows, they couldn't hang with him. He could hold his own in those debates. You see, because he obtained knowledge of self. He rose up and had a pride in himself, and this is where we see from him and others that the Black Pride movement came from. You see, so this is I believe is the cure to that problem, that these children need to be taught their true history about our history and the greatness of it, that, you know, and there were kingdoms and things of that nature, and the accomplishments of many well-known scientists, etc., of others from amongst the African American community. And this spreads out as well. This spreads out also into the Hispanic community. I want to give a shout out to the Taino gear makers. I like the design and I like the concept, and I like, you know, that concept of bringing the unity between the Hispanic community, in particular with this case it's the Puerto Rican community, because we know that we have you know, African roots in us. As you see, I'm representing, and as my name says, I'm aware and I acknowledge that fact that we have, you know, the African roots in our culture, and as well as other Latino, Cubans, Brazilians, Panamanians, even Mexico. Even in Mexico, slaves were brought to Mexico and mixed in with the mestizo people in Mexico. So, you know, it's there, and this knowledge needs to be known, because even in you know, in the Caribbean and in Central and South America, the same idea, that idea of black inferiority is also existent as well. So those are just a couple of my thoughts on that, and I'm out.